What exactly is human design, and how can it help you live in more alignment and ease? Hi, I'm Victoria Jane, and welcome to my human design channel, where we talk about human design and how to live your design for more vitality and ease. And today I want to talk about the origins of human design. Where does it come from? What is it really? And why it's relevant to your life. If you're here watching this, you've probably heard a little bit about human design, maybe that it's like astrology on steroids, or it's like Myers-Briggs, but way more detailed and accurate. And while I get the comparisons, none of those are totally accurate. Before we start, I want to remind you that if you're new here, please feel free to subscribe. Learning your human design is a process. It's not a one and done thing. And I would love to stay up to date with you on content to support your human design journey. Also, if you get value from this video, please like it. It helps us get the word out to other folks like yourself who are looking for this information. I like to describe human design as a system that tells us about how our energy works, what our unique gifts are, and also how to make decisions in a way that's aligned with how we're really meant to flow through the world. I'm sure you've had experiences where you were doing something and really like struggling and pushing, and maybe it was really successful in the end, but it just kind of felt like an uphill battle the whole way. In contrast, experiences where you weren't even really trying that hard, but things were just flowing and moving, and it felt really simple and easy. And that latter experience is more of what it feels like to be living your design. You're working with your natural flow of energy, your natural gifts, and you're not trying to be someone you're not, or play to strengths maybe that you don't have. Human design uses our birth date, time, and location. This is an element of human design that is similar to astrology because we're using your birth information. And in addition to astrology, human design also pulls from 3 other esoteric systems. So there's 4 systems that it draws from in total. There's the astrology, there is the Kabbalah tree of life, the Hindu chakra system, and then the Chinese I Ching. And these 4 systems it draws from, but also human design has its own sort of modern interpretations. For example, there are 7 chakras in the traditional chakra system, but there are 9 centers in human design. In addition to these 4 systems, human design also uses an element of quantum physics to explain how we get our designs. This is based on the fact that there are subatomic particles called neutrinos streaming through us all the time. So neutrinos come from stars, namely the sun, which makes up about 70% of the neutrino stream, and all of the other stars that are in the galaxy. And these neutrinos are super tiny. They travel at almost the speed of light, but not quite. And for a long time, people thought they didn't have mass, but they do. They have just the tiniest bit. As these neutrinos are being given off by the sun and these other stars, they pass through the Earth, they can pass through our bodies, and they imprint us with the tiniest imprint. And this imprinting, when we are born, is what activates different parts of our designs and gives you your unique design. There's something like 2 billion unique combinations of designs, like when we kind of just shuffle through all the different factors. So truly, you are so unique. And that, of course, even with 2 billion combinations, doesn't even scratch the fact that, where you're born and who your family is and all your life experiences. Even someone with the exact same design is going to be so different from you in some way. The last fact about this neutrino bit is that 60 to 90%, I've seen different estimates, of the mass of the universe is made up of neutrinos. To put it in perspective, there's a lot out there that is affecting us that we don't see. On to the origins of human design. There's these 4 systems and quantum physics, and it got all put together, but where did it come from? Human design was channeled by a man named Ra Uru, born as Alan Krakauer in 1987. So not that long ago, relatively speaking. He channeled this information over about a week on the island of Ibiza. Now, there's a whole rabbit hole you could go down around researching this, and I'm aware of the fact that there's probably a range of reactions. Some of you might feel like that's a little out there. Others of you might be totally comfortable with this. I am not here to push the origin story on anyone and really encourage you to believe what you feel comfortable with. I personally am very comfortable with it. And on the other hand, I have teachers in the human design space who believe that Ra was on a big psychedelic trip. If the origin story is a little out there, you can put it aside and simply have your own experience with the information of human design to whatever extent that you're comfortable. Maybe experiment with learning a little bit about your design and see how it applies to your life. One last thing that I want to speak to is why human design is not the same as a personality test. And again, I get the comparisons and I have nothing against personality tests. I love them. But human design is a little bit different from, say, a Myers-Briggs or an Enneagram or whatever it is, namely because personality tests, broadly speaking, are about how we identify how our personalities, right? And human design is really that's something that's fixed, right? It's based on your birth information. It doesn't change. It's not like, for example, a strengths finders. I've seen results from that change for people. We're born with it. A word that's used a lot in human design is mechanics, the mechanics of how our energy works. And so this is another piece to consider that, based on your design, based on your type, which we'll get more into in other videos, and the energy that you give off, how people feel you, that's all mechanical. You don't really control that. That's just part of your design. So for example, if you're a projector and you're in a big group and you're doing great talking one-on-one to someone, but then someone else feels left out, that's just mechanical, right? Or if you're a manifester and you decide to do something and you tell everyone about it and they all, like, their world is shook, that is very much manifestor mechanics, because manifestors are here to impact in a big way. Those are some examples of how human design and mechanics of your design are not exactly the same as a personality test. And people tell me, or ask me all the time rather, about if I see correlations between different personality tests and design. The short answer is no. Of course, there are areas where there are overlaps. For example, someone might have one part of their design where I see like there's a high percentage of people that will then correlate to like a specific Enneagram type. But it's not this black and white formulaic thing. I really understand the desire to want to like fit all the pieces together. I'm like that sometimes too. But really, these are all different systems that have their own frameworks. And sometimes there are correlations, and that can be fun to talk about, but it's not a formulaic cause and effect thing. So now that you understand a little bit more about where human design comes from, all the pieces that go into it, what is it ultimately helpful for? I like to think of human design as a system that supports you finding alignment and flow in your life and can really simplify things. I've seen for myself and so many of my clients that ultimately what human design can help support is a simplification of life, a greater sense of trusting yourself, who you naturally are, and taking us out of overthinking, overanalyzing, and really trusting like, oh, this is what I'm feeling pulled to do. I can be patient. I can trust that the right things are going to find me. And while human design can be complex, if you've pulled up your chart, really there's only a few things that you need to know to get started that can make a huge difference. So those three things are your type, and there's 1 of 5 types, your strategy, and every type has a corresponding strategy, and then your authority. And your authority is really the voice of your intuition. And there's 7-ish authorities. I like to say there's 7 technically, but there's some nuance to how you think about your authority even within that. And when you know that, when you know how your energy works and how you're meant to navigate life, which is really what your strategy is, then you can tune into your authority, that decision-making process, to decide, okay, this is how I want to move. And ultimately, this goes back to what I mentioned at the beginning around the difference between like pushing and struggling versus being in flow and alignment and just trusting that things are going to unfold as they're meant to for you. So an analogy that might be helpful, if you think about the fact that we're all on our journey of life traveling through, and some people are cars, other people are airplanes, other people are boats, right? There's different designs, different vehicle designs to get us through the journey of life. You probably want to know if you're an airplane, right? And especially if you're an airplane that's been trying to drive, but once you realize like, oh, I'm an airplane, I can fly, and this is how it works, that journey of moving through life is going to feel so much better when you can take off and find the airports as opposed to try to be a boat and sail. I hope that analogy makes sense. That's a little bit about origins of human design, what it is, how it can help simplify your life. In terms of where to go from here, I really encourage you to look at your type, strategy, and authority, for which we have videos. Thank you so much for watching. I love having you here as part of this human design community. If you found value, please feel free to like this video and subscribe to stay in touch. I also have an email newsletter, so if you want to learn more about human design and receive my most up-to-date reflections and tips on how to really practice living your design, that's below for you. Again, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.